you who are now watching this YouTube video on our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching our YouTube videos. We have wonderful YouTube videos. We make a YouTube video of every Sunday teaching that we have. We have done that for almost 2.5 years now. So there's wonderful speakers and wonderful teachings. So thank you. And thank you again, everybody who is joining us on ACIM Gather. And thank you for all of you who are here in the audience, in the body here in San Francisco. Nice to see. Yeah. Nice to see a nice turnout. Okay, the title of my talk today, My Day in Court. Because this week I had my day in court. I had jury duty. So jury duty has been a unique challenge for me for the whole time I've been a Course in Miracles student. And I think it's a unique challenge for any A Course in Miracles student, just what to do about that jury duty summons when it comes in the mail, and then how you're gonna handle it. Now, I think everybody loves democracy. I mean, it's a real common thing to love democracy, and many people believe jury service and a trial by jury. I mean, that's a foundational thing in our democracy. So there is a predisposition to feel good about the system in this way. However, the actuality of sitting in a jury and then having to declare a sister or a brother or a fellow holy child of God guilty or not guilty is a dilemma. Because, especially as you've read in the reading here that we read just a few minutes ago, it's all about seeing our sisters and brothers and holy children of God as not guilty. Then, not only that, once you're on a jury and let's say the jury does declare the defendant guilty, then what's next is the judge decides on the punishment. So it's a real guilty verdict that is the preparation for punishment being imposed upon the person by our society, by our government. And I don't think there's anyone who has studied A Course in Miracles who wouldn't see how this is a problem. This is a little bit of a dilemma, like what to do. I love democracy, I want to do my civic duty, I don't want to be an outcast in some ways, yet sitting in judgment of my fellow holy children of God and then declaring guilty, not guilty, and then setting one up for punishment just doesn't seem right. I could reread that whole reading that we just had because there were so many great lines on it, but the one that I like to remember and that I like to tell a judge when I get that opportunity is that my religion teaches me to see no one then as guilty, and you will affirm the truth of guiltlessness unto yourself. So, I don't want to be guilty, so I don't want to see anyone else as guilty, and it does not matter what evidence the world can conjure up, because that evidence is just coming from our own minds. It's a hallucination we're projecting into the world from our own minds. So it is still our job to see and declare innocence or not guilty with all of our holy children of God, sisters and brothers in Christ. And that's what I tell the judge when I get in that position. And this has happened to me. I've probably had the call to jury duty, I don't know, 8, 10 times since I've lived in San Francisco, maybe more. It happens every couple of years, it seems. And it's actually gotten a little more regular, I think, in the computer age. They missed me for a whole bunch of years when I first moved here, but I'm in their system now, and it's a very interesting thing for me now. Because what I found out is, first of all, there is no way to opt yourself out of this process, or at least I have not found a way. I don't have any of the reasons to opt myself out of the process itself. And the only way I can actually not sit in a jury is to get called into the jury box and have my time to talk to the judge. Because they go around and ask you certain questions, and then I can address the judge. And I've tried every other way to do this so I don't have to do that. None of that has worked. Maybe some others have ways to do that. Hasn't worked with me. So, but it is an interesting thing, and you get that moment to talk to the judge, and you get that moment to talk to the court clerk and the police officer who's there, and the defense attorney, and the prosecuting attorney, the attorney representing the people. I love how the attorney that represents the people, the district attorney's office. And you get a chance to address the defendant, what other lawyers might be there or assistants, and you get a chance to address the entire jury pool that's there with you. And an interesting thing I found about this is people are paying attention. A lot of times in life when you talk, people here, they were thinking of other things, but in a jury room, in a courthouse, this is an unusual thing for most people, and they actually are paying attention. And you can feel that and see that. So you have everybody's attention. And I actually have shifted now. I don't do it so that I don't have to serve on the jury. I don't want to serve on the jury because of the spiritual, religious dilemma it puts me in. But I've learned to see this now, though, as just an opportunity for me to give a little teaching, a little sermon to people who I normally would not reach. These are not the usual people that would come to a Sunday gathering like this, and you get to give this little bit of teaching and truth to a whole bunch of people who otherwise probably would not get this teaching. Another great thing to remember and tell the judge, or just to tell yourself as you're getting ready for the process, is A Course in Miracles tells us to attest his innocence and not his guilt. That this is what our religion teaches us. And this is one of those times when it would probably behoove you to think of it as a religion. Because when you get into the jury box, you say it's my philosophy, that's not going to mean much. You say it's my spiritual beliefs, it's not going to mean that much either. But if you say it's my religion, because of the way our government honors religion and the separation of church and state, that actually means a whole lot more. Because we have the right to practice our religion for religious freedom. So that has way more weight. So of course I always frame it in that context, because actually that is the way I think of it, as you know. I do think of A Course in Miracles as my religion. And in a jury box, that is definitely advantageous. If you are guided not to serve, which I am. Now, an interesting thing has evolved over the years of going to jury duty, and I know probably a lot of you here have done it as well, is over the years they've gotten really savvy and interesting. They give you all kinds of teaching and propaganda, basically, when you go there. When you're sitting in the jury room waiting to get called, there's these videos that play. They're really well-made videos talking to people who are on juries, and people saying what a great experience it was for them to be on the jury, and how they feel such more of a participatory mode of their government. And they didn't want to in the beginning, but and they go on, and they give you this whole... And it's kind of, if your mind is open to it, it's kind of convincing. I found myself wanting to serve. And then you get into the courtroom itself, and the judge, then he gets on it. And I mean, a lot of what the judge does in that whole first day in jury selection is give you a civics lesson in the judicial system and how important it is, and how important trial by jury is for our democratic system. And other democratic countries don't have trial by jury. And they're still democracies, but it's up to the judges to decide guilt or innocence, not this jury of one's peers. And I'm open to it. I found it very effective. I actually found it very effective. And I think it was very effective for most of the people sitting there. I mean, very few people want to serve on a jury. And nobody's really excited when they get that jury summons. In fact, that was one of the first things the judge asked us. Who opened that jury summons and said, "Oh boy, jury duty"? Nobody says that. But in the process of that whole indoctrination, a message does come across. And I gotta commend them for that. I think they're doing a really good job of getting people psyched up and at least open to serving on a jury. And that's great. But I'm still not guided to serve on a jury, but I'm really not guided to serve on a jury just because of what I've already said, because it's against my religious beliefs. Just to declare somebody guilty and now ready to be punished. It's just, that's only going to make me feel guilty. And I am here to let go of guilt, not to reinforce guilt. At least, that's the way I interpret things. Now, another thing that's always interesting to me when I go into a courtroom, is as much as it says that, you know, our Constitution is a separation of church and state, what the state has done is sort of become a church. Because when you go into a jury room and a courtroom, it's a lot like church. I mean, it's really a lot like church. The judge is there, he's got a robe on, he's certainly an authority, he's doing his best to reach the people, to give them a message, a philosophical message. It's about morality, there's all the attendant attributes of power, there's flags, there's icons, there's, you know, it's just all the stuff. He's got attendants, and that is church. I mean, they're talking about high moral principles. And then another interesting thing, though, this time, and this didn't happen, last time I was 2 or 3 years ago, this church that's our court system, at least in San Francisco, is going through some hard times. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough money. That's what he kept sharing with us. The budget cuts. He talked about the budget cuts in the courtroom so much. They no longer have court reporters. He apologized for us about not having court reporters anymore. That they have a little red light which shows a recording is being made. So a digital recording is being made so they can refer to it and transcribe it at a later time, but they can't afford court reporters. And he apologized over and over for that. Another thing he apologized for was the fact that they've had so many budget cuts. It was really funny here, the judge said. They have so many budget cuts that they've had to do away with the court on Fridays. There's no more court on Fridays. So it's Monday through Thursday, and that was a money-saving thing. And also, he says, for the very first time, and he seemed genuinely upset about this, they're forcing them to hear 2 cases a day in that courtroom. So they have a morning case and an evening case. And so even though we were on jury duty, if we were in the morning case, we would be let go before lunch, and we wouldn't have to come back because there was an afternoon, I'm sorry, morning and an afternoon case. There was an afternoon case, and he apologized again for that. So our court system needs some money, at least according to them. But I just thought that was interesting that that they're having to do with less, but actually what it seemed like he was saying is they had to compress things down. They've had to trim things and make them more streamlined and quicker because the old process was just costing them way too much money. Now, this was for a criminal case. In other words, I was definitely deciding, we were going to be asked to decide guilt or not guilty. But there are civil cases, and civil cases are not declaring guilt or not guilty. They're declaring responsibility and financial liability. And I had been in those cases too, and the same thing applies because we study a religion, it's always better if you call it a religion, that teaches that every single person is 100% responsible for every single thing that happens to them. That nobody else is responsible, nobody's ever really truly victimized by anybody. So to say that this other person is responsible for what happens to this person, and that this other person then owes this person money to make up for this responsibility is also against our religion. And one of the quotes I use for that is, "It is impossible that happenings that come to him were not his choice. His power of decision was the determiner of every situation in which he seems to find himself." So even though the appearance is victimization, or that something happened to someone against his or her or their will, the truth is somehow they did cause it, and somehow they did set it up, and they are 100% responsible. So it doesn't work to be in a civil case either, for me. Other people may have other guidance. Now, as I said, I used to really not want to serve in jury duty, and a large part of it was just I was busy, and it's this huge imposition on your time. All of a sudden your life has to go on hold while you're there in the jury room. But I've shifted on that. But the truth is, I'm always busy. You know, it's like I'm always busy. And if I'm always busy, would have to be something that compared one part of your life to a different part of your life. And my life is always busy, so I don't know, that's beginning to break up in my mind. So I can't really, you know, it wouldn't matter. I'd be just as busy if I didn't have the jury duty to contend with. But as I said a little earlier, what the shift is now happening, which I just really realized that I am there to deliver a little seed of a message. And I must say that at this time, I got to deliver it better than I have at other times. Not only did I get a chance to talk to the judge and tell the judge how I'm a spiritual, religious man. And, you know, my name says Reverend Tony. When they read my name, they read Reverend Tony because that's my name. And so then you have to list your occupation. I said, you know, I'm the head minister of a church in San Francisco. So, I mean, I've got that going in my favor, too. So I got to say my whole deal with the judge. They don't release anybody, like, really quickly. But then the defense attorney got to question me. And I was always a little curious as to why the defense attorney questioned me and was trying to get me to talk, because I would actually think, with my predisposition to want to see people as not guilty, I'd be really good for the defense. I would be what the defense would want, somebody to see their client as not guilty. But what I was talking to somebody about this who had a different perspective on our jury system, and he gave me a little clue as to why the defense attorney would be grilling me so much. He says, because, for one, the defense attorney knows you're going to get dismissed. He says, that's a foregone conclusion. They're not going to really let you sit in this jury. He goes, but while you're in there, the defense attorney is going to use you to communicate a message that might influence some of the people who will serve. He says, so the defense attorney wants you to talk about why everybody isn't guilty. And that'll put a seed of doubt in a lot of people's minds about the whole process. And the defense attorney wants that seed of doubt. So I got it, because you can lead a juror. The selection of jurors is not like the actual trial, where the attorney can't lead the, quote, witness. But you can, the attorneys can lead the jurors. That's not the actual trial. So they can ask questions leading me in a certain direction. So he wanted me to expound about my spiritual beliefs and why was it that I don't see people as guilty, and what does that mean to me? And so I got to talk a little. I wasn't going to get into this because it's, you know, more religious stuff, but we're metaphysical religion and we believe our thoughts are creating that reality. So even if there is evidence, so-called evidence, that seems to say something, we just see that evidence as a hallucination coming from our own minds, and so we're taught to discount it. And so I got to say that really, and you know me, I project and I'm articulate. So I mean, everybody in that whole courtroom really hears it. Some of the other prospective jurors have soft voices and are not as articulate. They're not practiced speakers. They don't get heard quite as much. But you know, everybody in that courtroom heard me say that. And then it was also interesting that when they went to talk to another juror, that other juror referred back to what I was saying. He goes, that other juror was a woman, she goes, I thought it was really interesting what juror number 18 said. He goes, I've heard that other places. That's a very interesting perspective, and I want less guilt in the world, and the fact that I could just choose that. And so I got it then, why they don't, you know, why the DA, the district attorney, is not going to want me on the case, because that point of view could influence other people, other jurors, and the district attorney is going for a guilty verdict, not a not guilty verdict. I used to want to get out of jury duty for other reasons too, because I have anxiety issues, and being confined in a jury room, and you know, it's really sort of strange. We believe we live in this free society, but your freedom just sort of gets taken away from you all of a sudden. You know, like we're living in a free society, like, sort of, but when you get jury duty, you have to go to that room, you have to go into that process, you can't opt out of it, and you can get tied up for weeks. You know, for weeks, months, your life could just really be put on hold for this process, and that used to produce all kinds of problems. I felt like my freedom was getting taken away, and it just seemed strange, and it would produce anxiety. But I didn't find that experience this time. I was fine, maybe because I was pretty confident that I would eventually get released, and I was really grateful that I was part of the first group that got called into the jury box. I've been released sometimes, but still had to go back the next day because they were still calling people into the jury box, and you don't get a chance to plead your case until you're in the jury box. So I was actually happy when I was part of that first group that went in there. I said, well, at least we'll get this through right away. I was a little miffed for a minute. That I thought they could have released me before lunch, but they didn't. But then I was walking looking for a place to lunch, and the Hall of Justice is right by the Flower Mart. And there's this little restaurant on the Flower Mart at 6th and Brannan that I've always wanted to eat at, but it's really only open during the day. It's called Bocelli's Flower Market Cafe, and somebody told me that it was really good once. And I was like, wow, I'll go eat at Bocelli's. I've always wanted to do that. And so I got to fulfill that little ego thing, and it was fine. I had a nice lunch, I had a burger, and I went back into the courtroom, and they released me afterwards. And it was true. Another person that they released at the same time came right up to me, asked me. She goes, "That was very interesting what you said." She goes, "Tell me a little bit more about your church." She asked for information, gave her a business card. So like I said, I get to see this now. It's not just that I'm trying to get out of jury duty because it's unpleasant, and it's not just because I'm not serving on a jury because it's against my religion. I actually see it as a very interesting opportunity to preach to people who I would not normally get to preach to. It was fascinating. And so I really appreciate my day in court. The truth is, our whole judicial system, our whole jail system, the way we incarcerate so many people, we have one of the highest incarceration rates of any civilized country. We may have the highest. I think we have...
Any civilization in the history of man.
Any civilization with it. We have the highest incarceration...
No joke.
Incarceration rate of any civilization in the history of man. Those judges and those they're doing a really good job at indoctrinating us into that this is a good system, aren't they? I just remembered this quotation from A Course in Miracles. Who can be set free while he imprisons anyone? A jailer is not free, for he is bound together with his prisoner. He must be sure the prisoner does not escape, and so he, the jailer, spends his time keeping watch on him. The bars which limit the prisoner become the world in which the jailer lives along with him. And it is in his freedom, that would be the prisoner's, that the way to liberty depends for both of them. So we have this system that logically sounds good, and it's democracy, and we like that. But it incarcerates more people in the history of any civilization. And they're our brothers, sisters, holy children of God in Christ. And they're us. They're us. So do what you ever are guided to do when you get that jury summons in the mail. But maybe you'll just remember some of the things I've said. And if you can truly absorb and take A Course in Miracles on as your religion, you have a good case in front of the judge. And you might just have your day in court.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.